and welcome back to Unspoken Emotions, the podcast where we gently bring voice to feelings many people carry quietly while life continues moving around them. The emotions that shape who we become, even when the world only sees our strength. There is a particular kind of grief that doesn't look like grief. It looks like functioning. It looks like coping. It looks like being reasonable. It looks like staying. Until one day you realize you're no longer living, you're just enduring. Today's conversation isn't just about divorce. It's about identity erosion. It's about the psychological cost of silence, and it's about the moment a woman realizes she abandoned herself and decides to stop. My guest today is Claire Adamou. During her divorce, Claire was living in her sister's garage with her children while navigating relentless legal battles, and she describes feeling like a shell, numb and unrecognizable. But what interests me the most isn't the garage, it's the internal shift. Claire, welcome to Unspoken Emotions. Thank you for being on our show and welcome here today. I'm really grateful to have you with us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really honoured to be a guest today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So, Claire, I want to begin, if we can, not so much with what happened, but I guess with the question of when did you first realise that you were no longer yourself?
It's a really great question. And I think about this a lot because my story, I'm 8 years post leaving or asking for a divorce. And really, I always feel like it took a good few years for me to actually get to that point and have the courage to say I wanted to leave. And it wasn't just I woke up one day and decided I didn't love my husband or that I was worth more. It really was just years and years of losing who I was. And let me take you back to when I met him, I was outgoing, I was bubbly, I was driven, I was a career woman. I say a career woman in my early 20s, but I really worked so hard to build a career and was really thriving at life. I had a great group of friends. I got to travel with work and I really loved my life. We got married and there was a lot of clashes, even from the get-go in our relationship, but we persevered through that and got married, had 2 kids in quite quick succession. They were 18 months apart. And I'm like, if I'm having a mum bod, I'm getting my babies, getting the babies out. And I remember them even being babies, like 2, 3 years old and sitting on the bedroom floor thinking, I just can't do this. And it was everything. I felt like every day I was doing something wrong. I wasn't doing the laundry right. I wasn't meal planning properly. I was overbuying food, underbuying food. I was spending too much money. I was going out too much. I was, everything. I remember just everything. And he's just like started to just take, I say, the wife duties away from me. Okay, well, you just always do the laundry wrong, so I might as well do it myself because you just can't do it. I'm like, who gets laundry wrong? So
Wow.
then all of this self-doubt started to creep in. And I just found myself withdrawing from that marriage so much and just became almost a shell of myself to the point that I remember I got itchy feet in my job. I'd been doing my job for a really long time and I'd outgrown it. And I remember and at this point I was running the business for the owner. I'd been running it for many, many years. And I sent an email and I said, we need to sort of have a conversation and look at the business and look at what's next because I'm not really happy. I'm not sure the direction that I can take this business anymore. And bearing in mind, I've been in business, like in the corporate world, for more than 10 years at this point, about 8 years, sorry. And I remember my ex-husband said to me, that was really cringe. I wouldn't have done that if I was you. That's really cringe, that email. And I just thought, oh my God, like I can't do anything right at work. And now you're at home and now you're criticizing me at work. And so I became even more withdrawn. And I just thought, I don't know who I am. I'm not laughing, I'm not crying, I'm not smiling. I'm just literally, it was like I was watching myself go through the motions. And I went to a conference with work. I went to a conference and I thought, I don't want to go home. I literally don't want to. I dreaded going home. And I went home, and this, we're talking a few years have gone by, since I started to feel like this. And I went home and I slept on the sofa. And the next morning, he said to me, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I just want a divorce. I've had enough. Like, I can't do it anymore." And at that point, there's no crying, there's no shouting, and we'd had all of that. We'd had all the crying, we'd had all the shouting, we'd had the make or break holidays. And I just thought, I just can't. I'm so done feeling numb to my life and raising these kids feeling numb and just going through the motions, that I need more from my life than this. And yeah, it little did I know how awful it would then become. But yeah, that was really the moment when I don't want to go home. That's when I know my line is done. I'm at that line now.
Hmm. That's a massive thing to go through, like having been the type of person who is very clearly very stable, very secure, very confident within themselves, and to be gradually worn down to such a point where you just don't even recognize yourself anymore, and you're second guessing absolutely everything, and constantly being criticized of whatever it is that you do by someone that's supposed to love you. Your partner, your other half, your confidant, your support, and to treat you like that and make you feel like that. I mean, that's it takes it to a whole new level, doesn't it? Did you feel when you had that bit of an awakening of that one day where you sort of took a look at your life, that line in the sand was drawn? How did you actually feel realizing when you actually realized the person that you now were, that you had now become, compared to the person that you obviously were before?
I felt like it was really sad. I felt really sad that I had lost who I was, and really just felt like a shell of Claire, and a shell of a wife, and a shell of a mother. And I thought, I can't live like this. Like, there's more to life than this. I didn't hustle and work hard and go through all of this to be a shell of who I am. Like, I want so much more for myself, and I want more for my kids. I want to show up laughing and joking and being everything, and at the minute I'm not. I'm just surviving, is how I felt. Like, I was just surviving. um and yeah, it definitely was a trigger. Like, I can't be that. I can't be a shell of Claire anymore.
How many years did that go on for?
Years. It was, were arguing. I think in the end we were together about 8 years, 9 8 9 years we were together, I think. And we were together 9 years, sorry, just remembering, 9 years. And I want to say we were arguing even after the first year. And he used to say that we can't both be the alpha male. And I'm like, but you can't also be my dad and tell me what to do. I have a dad. You're supposed to be my
Yeah.
partner. But he wanted to be the very old school traditional, you are the wife and this is how you behave, and I'm the man, and you're supposed to respect me, and I'm like, but you earn respect. You don't demand respect, you earn it. And it was very much things like that. And I remember once he said, "You're supposed to make me happy." And I went, "No, no, no." Like, we're supposed to be happy together. I should not be the source of your happiness. Like, that's a lot to put on me as a person. And I don't expect you to be the source of my happiness. Like, I can't be happy unless you make me happy. It's not a healthy relationship. I should be happy in my life for all the things that are going on, and you should be happy, and we should be happy together. But he had this very different view over what the relationship should be. And it really didn't align with me. And that was years before even we got married and had kids. And when I left, the kids were 6 and 7. So it had been going on for years and years.
Yeah.
My friends had seen it, my family had seen it. I'd cook dinners and like dinner parties, and he'd sit there and critique them in front of everybody and put me down, and think lots of things like that that just eroded my confidence, which I'd never been insecure or been unconfident in the past. In fact, we all have our insecurities, but I was always sort of very confident in who I was. But by the time I left, that was really diminished.
Shocking, isn't it, about how far the other way someone can push you and take you, compared to who you were. And you've said that obviously this was happening over a period of time. Could you see and appreciate that this was happening over a period of time, like as it was happening? And then obviously with you staying there, did you choose to stay there and not go sooner because even though this was happening, it kind of felt safer? Or was there another reason?
So that's a great question, because I did feel it, and there did become a bit of a shift about a year before I left, and I started to be more selfish. So I started to build up a little bit of me. So I used to go out a little bit more. So I'd organise, any opportunities for dinners with my girlfriends, or Friday wine afternoons, or whatever it was. So I started to do a bit more like things like that, because I felt so trapped and I felt so unhappy. And I was traveling quite a bit with work, which gave me that sort of respite that I know a lot of other people don't have. But I would travel 4 times a year, around 4 to 5 times a year with work. So that would give me little breaks in that environment and kind of boost me back up to go, right, you can do this,
Yeah.
Whereas I think if I didn't have that, I probably would have left a lot sooner. Um, so that really helped. But for me, it was the fear of unpicking the life. There's a couple of reasons. One, it was the actual logistics. We owned 2 houses. We shared a car. We didn't have a car each. We shared a car, and we owned a business together. So all of my money from my job went into his business. I didn't have access to the business bank account. So all of my money went into the business bank account that legally we both owned, but I never had access to it ever. And so I didn't financially have any of my own money. So I'm like, how are we going to deal with all of this? Right? Like, just the logistics of 2 homes. And we just started renovating the home that we lived in. We had a rental property. So it's like, oh my God, now we're renovating the house. How does that look? So that was a massive part of, I have no idea how to handle all of this. And the second part is the shame and the stigma of saying that I'm going to be divorced. And my family, divorce was taboo, and it was shameful and frowned upon. And this was something that was drummed into me my entire life. And I have one aunt that got a divorce and got remarried, and no one ever let her forget it. It was, she's the black sheep, she's the one that got a divorce. And so I was afraid of what my family were going to say. And actually my fears came true. It really changed. My parents completely disagreed with my divorce, didn't agree with it. It took them a long time to get over it. And then when I started seeing someone new, that really affected them. They were very unhappy. Um, and it's really taken years for me to rebuild the relationship with my parents. And I've put it back to me being divorced and the shame that that brought. So it was a real concern of mine. And I've lost friends over it as well that didn't agree with me getting a divorce. And all of a sudden I'm a threat, or I'm a different type of person. And because now I'm divorced, just thinking that I'm going to be going out and doing crazy things.
You're going after their husbands, you're going after their boyfriends because you're now single. I mean, what is it, that, I mean, again, that's insecurities within them, but that's another, if, for another episode. But it's just, it never seems to amaze me of the fact that in today's day and age, I mean, we're not talking that this happened 20, 30 years ago. We're talking in the recent years, within the last 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. It was 8 years ago, almost to the day. 8
Yeah.
years ago, I asked him for.
Yeah. And so in today's day and age now, where you surely were displaying almost the worst part of you, if you like, because that is who you would become, and they would have seen you diminished to this. And yet they were still rather you were stuck in that relationship than help support you to be out of it, knowing how desperately unhappy you were and how miserable your life had been. It never ceases to amaze me. And you just think, where are we going? Where are we going? I just can't imagine any of my family or my friends coming to me and I'm seeing them in this kind of state and in this condition, and me going, oh yeah, but you need to stay there. But you've got kids together, so you have to stay there. And it's like, yeah, but surely the children will be seeing the worst part of you. And, it says something, showing your children that you can be strong enough to leave something that's not working out, but you can be mature enough perhaps to still have an amicable relationship where you can co-parent. Surely that means more. When you end up ultimately hating each other, that relationship then becomes really, really hard to kind of maintain. So how hard is that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I don't think that I could treat my children or my friends that way either. I think that we have to be there for people when they make decisions, right? Rightly or wrongly, we might not agree with people's decisions. And my friends might not have agreed with certain things that I did or the way that I handled certain things, you know, but true friendship and true love comes without those expectations or those opinions, right? It should be just like, I think you made a mistake, but I love you and I'm going to support you. What do you need? Or you could have handled that situation a bit better. Or I wouldn't advise you to dance on the bar, Claire, in, a short skirt. I wouldn't recommend you do that, but I'm going to support you in coming back down off the bar.
Yeah.
We can make
But
stupid.
that's it. I mean, of course, that is exactly it. It's like when that love and friendship is there, it's unconditional, isn't it? When that true love and friendship is there, it's unconditional. And when people are putting, our closest family even are putting conditions on us that they're only going to support us if we are, in a certain way, it's really, really hard to, really, really hard to deal with. And I know that there are some cultures out there who they're just not allowed to get divorced. And I just think, how on earth do they cope, in that kind of setting where if the situation was similar, and sometimes it might even be worse, and they might be feeling even worse than you did, or even, more of a shell of themselves than you were. How do they cope? How do they get by?
Yeah.
Just how?
You're 100% right. And I think it is, we are lucky that we have options, right? In our culture, we have those options available to us. And we might then have that shame and the stigma and the lack of support. But if we really feel like leaving is the better option, we know that we can. And I think we're incredibly, I don't even want to use the word lucky in that respect, but it is that we have the ability to make the choices and the decisions that
Yeah.
others perhaps don't.
Yeah.
And it is looking at, okay, well, what changes can be made and how can you survive this? So if you can't leave, it's what changes do you need to make? And you might not be able to do anything in the relationship. You might not be able to change dynamics, but you can change the way that you show up in those environments or in those conversations. And for me, staying so long, I actually just withdrew. So I almost became like a shield of armor that just couldn't penetrate, because I'm just like, if I don't feel anything, you can't hurt me anymore. So I built, that's how I learned to cope with that. It's just like, okay, just something else I do wrong. It's kind of just rolls off the suit of armor and just
Yeah.
I go about my day. But I know that was because of years of putting up with it, and not everyone handles it the same way.
Mm. I mean, you talked, I 100% agree with you there. And what I wanted to just touch back on is that you spoke about shame, and obviously your family not being supportive of you, and you also spoke about obviously staying in that relationship, in that marriage, for longer than you should have. Do you think that staying in the marriage longer than you should have felt like proof to your family, perhaps, that you were loyal?
That's a great question.
Because obviously sometimes we can confuse endurance with integrity.
Yeah.
So, did you ever feel like, well, if I stay longer, at least my family know I've been loyal to him and loyal to your marriage, loyal to your duties,
Yeah,
to
do you know
lessen the
what?
shame?
Yeah, of course. It's a great question, and I never thought about it that way, honestly. But maybe a part of me did think that, and I stayed as long as I could, and the kids weren't babies, and I tried everything, and I gave it my all, and we kept going. And yeah, you're probably right, to be fair. And honestly, I never thought about that, but yeah, that's probably contributed to why I did stay so long.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, what else was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you as well about the just, everyone listening is probably going to be picturing you on the garage floor in your sister's house. But I'm less interested in the tears. I'm more interested in the belief system that broke in that moment. So, what story about yourself collapsed when you were lying there? Like, was it, I've got this, I can hold it, I'll fix this? Was it, if I just try harder? And when you put that blanket, I suppose, over your children, did you carry on feeling the shame, or did you feel seen?
I I remember that day so clearly because I just kept getting letters constantly from lawyers, and I left with almost just a car full of stuff. Anything I could put in the car is what I left with. Um, whilst he was in a 4-bedroom house, 5-bedroom house. Um, and so we just made this, it was just fun for the kids. They didn't mind their bunk beds. I every night woke up with a bad back because I'm on a futon. But the letters just kept coming and coming and coming. And I remember just completely losing it to the point that I just couldn't stop crying for 2, 3, 4 hours. I just continuously was crying. And I was just like, is this it for me? Is this it? Is this my life now? That I'm just continuously in this war with the lawyers, and just what I just felt like every time the postman came, it was like an atomic bomb had been dropped on me. That's how it kept coming. If you can visualize that, just continuously like bombing me all the time. Um, and I just thought he's sitting there in this 4 or 5 bedroom house, nice and cushy, and just doesn't care, right? That me and the kids are in the garage and it's snowing outside and we've got an electric heater keeping us warm, and now Bethany needs the toilet, so I have to unlock the door and walk through the snow to unlock the door to my sister's house because it's not joining the house and I've got no toilet. So at 3 a.m. And I thought he doesn't care. He's put us here. And I tried to evict our tenant and he blocked it, wouldn't told the tenant to report me for harassment if I dared to turn up at the door and evict her, even though I went the legal route. So he blocked me. So yeah, so a year we lived there, and it was about 6 months, 7 months in, and this particular day where I was just distraught, I thought, this is now sink or swim. This is either this moment is going to define what I do next. And something just literally, it was like an ignition turned on. And I thought, who are you to now try and destroy me to the next level? And I pictured him sitting there rattling around this big giant house, and here me and the 2 kids are cramped in this tiny room. And I'm just like, watch me now. Keep dropping these atomic bombs on me, and see what happens, and watch what I do with my life now, because you had me for 9 years, and that nearly destroyed who I was as a woman and a human being. Like, you eroded my confidence, and my gut instinct was gone, and all of those things. I just literally, I picked myself, I picked myself up. Actually, I say pick myself up. After I stopped crying, I had a nap. Then I picked myself up and was like, now this fire was ignited in me. Watch me go. And that was a massive turning point for me, because I thought, my kids are seeing me crying all the time. This is not healthy for them to see the impact on me of what's going on. And I really tried not to talk bad about their dad. I really tried, but there were some days where I'm just like, I can't stop these tears. I literally can't. They're so bad. I don't know what else to do. Um, and it was that moment, and I'm like, you watch me now. Do not think that you're going to destroy me. And yeah, it was a game changer mentally and emotionally for me.
It's like a phoenix from the flames, and you better be ready, boy, because she's coming. Good
That was
on you.
Yeah, that was exactly it. That was exactly what it was. It was like the phoenix coming back.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was huge for me.
Good on you. I am curious though, was there anything that happened that particular day that made it that day that something changed? Was there anything that kind of, brought
The
on that?
Mm. The paperwork from the lawyers, I think it was talking about me, and he was trying to discredit me as a mother. And I'm an incredible mum. I know I've got my flaws, right? I shout at them when I'm having a bad day and they've left the plate on the side. And I'm like, put your plate in the dishwasher, but I'm only human as a mother. And I know that I'm
Human.
very loving and very kind and very supportive. And I'm there for everything that they need and want. So to come and discredit me as a mother because I've left you as a wife, that really got to me. And I thought, no, no, no. Of all the things you're going to come for me, you're never going to come for me as a mother. And then my kids trying to console me. I thought, I'm never having my kids console me like this ever again, ever. They do not need to be seeing me crying like this because daddy's done something to me. Never am I going to let this happen again. So that those two things combined was really what sparked something in me to come back fighting. And it was just like, I might not have all the answers, I might not have all of my situations situated, but I will, and I remember who the hell I am, and now it's time to watch me come back.
Good on you. Good on you. Did you ever feel like you were ever going to get that strength back again? Because that part of you, that's clearly who you were before, and that's in your in your nature, but it was battered out of you for so long. Did you ever feel like you were going to see that side of you again?
Do you know what I did? I knew I was still in there. I just needed to change my environment, right? Because we are a product of our environment. And I knew that when I was with my girlfriends that we have a nicer time, and I am more bubbly, and I do
Yeah.
speak up more. So there were those times where I'm like, I am still that person. And then when I would travel with work, and I'd get reignited with work because I worked from home. So I didn't see anybody day to day. So that also didn't help how I was feeling in terms of, isolated and not feeling like myself. So those trips started to go, oh, this is who Claire is. Here she is. And so I knew that that person was still there, but how can you be that person when your environment is still the same? So I had to get out and change that environment. Living at my sister's for a year, we then lived in a 2-bedroom apartment for 6 months. I just thought this is a stepping stone to rebuilding, and I know that I'll get there. Is it taking too long? Yeah. Is it frustrating? Yeah. Could it be better? Yeah. But the kids were happy, and so I'm like, okay, the minute the kids are unhappy, that's when something needs to happen. But I feel like everything happened the way that it was supposed to, for me to be who I am now, and who I felt like I was always going to be. And I always say, I've had a couple of people say, is it the same you as prior to your marriage? And I go,
For sure.
it's like me, but on speed.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. I love it. One of the things that you said as well was obviously about the cost of staying silent, and how much how much it was costing you. So let's name the cost, if we can. Did it cost? Obviously, I think it obviously cost you your confidence. Did it cost you your sexuality, your ambition, your trust in your instincts, like all of these things?
All of them, really. I would say all of them, yeah, because you second guess everything. You second guess how you look, how you talk.
Yeah,
Being told that you're cringe, even though he'd go, "Oh, play it down. Oh, that was just joking." I said, "But you said it. You said it about my work, and then we were out at barbecue, and you said it in front of other people." And I thought, I've never been cringe in my. No one's ever told me that before.
yeah,
I'm a very well put together woman. No one's ever said that to me.
yeah,
And so, yeah, it was doubting every part of who I was. And even then when I was thinking about my career and I'd sent this email, I was just then thinking, oh my goodness, is this the right thing to do? Should I just stay where I am? Am I reaching too high? Am I wanting something that I shouldn't want anymore? And yet I'd always worked really hard to build my career. And then you're now making me doubt that on top of everything else. So yeah, it's all of the things that you mentioned for sure.
Did it make you stop trusting like your own perception as well of things,
You
your
guns.
outlook on things? Yeah, and your
Yeah.
intuition as well.
Yeah, it did a bit, to be fair. And I would second guess myself. It's funny because I would second guess myself and stop trusting myself for a while until the last few years where I'd pulled back, and then it was just like, I'm just going to trust what I want to do. It's almost, I became a little bit like a child because I was like, I'm just going to do what I want to do and then ask for forgiveness because
I love that.
really, because I was like, I'm so sick of this situation and
Yeah,
feeling this way that I'm like, okay, I need to start listening a bit, but I almost don't care anymore. So I'm just going to do things and then ask for forgiveness. Oh, I didn't tell you I was going to Sweden for work for 5 days. Oh, sorry, I've already booked the flights. Didn't realize I didn't tell you.
yeah.
Sorry.
My bad.
My bad. So just, which sounds, you know, disrespectful, but it was survival. I was like, this is the only way I can survive. If I don't do a few things for myself, I'm never going to be who I am, and I am going to feel completely trapped and a shell of who I am. And these little things over the last year or two, like, they just saved me.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
asking, it was like I felt like a child because I'd just do things and then ask for forgiveness. Oh, sorry, I'd go out with my girlfriends for brunch and we'd come home at 6 or something. It's like, well, I thought you
yeah.
were for brunch. Yeah, sorry, lost track of time. So, but it's because I didn't want to go home. It was the only time that I felt happy, when I was away from the home.
Mm. I mean, some people might be wondering, well, perhaps in those circumstances, where you're like asking for forgiveness after the event,
Yeah.
well, maybe she didn't help herself. But you've said this was a form of survival. And this is exactly, you weren't always that type of person. It wasn't that you were always inconsiderate or things like that. You very much were, but this is what he, had battered you into. And how what you essentially felt you had to do in order to survive and get through every day, really. So good on you. I just think, in terms of judgment and things like that, you can't judge anybody else until you've walked a day in their shoes.
Yeah.
And we are so like scared sometimes to just say how we feel. But what you were going through clearly was a relationship of coercive control, which is classed as domestic violence now. So, but did you ever think that it was that when you were in it?
Not when I was in it. And there was the moment that I realized was when he didn't believe that I wanted a divorce. He thought I was having a nervous breakdown, or I was experiencing stress at work and doing too much at work, and that it would just pass. And this went on for months. And I'm like, no, no, no. We're done. We're separated. We're living in separate bedrooms. We get the house done. We can sell the house and move on. So this went on for a good few months, and he wasn't telling any of his family, he wasn't telling any of his friends. All of my side knew what was going on. And he said, well, it can't be true because you haven't told the kids and you haven't filed papers. And so I thought, right, this is how he's going to know that it's real, is when I do those two things. Because the reason I didn't do these two things was because we were renovating the house, and basically that was a sticking point to being able to move forward. So I managed to separate the business. I managed in this period to get him to split the business, pull out, like split the finances. So now I've got my own money, and my company were paying me directly. So I knew financially I was safe. And then I think, I can't remember what came first, whether I filed first or I told the kids, but I wanted to tell the kids. So I wanted, because I was the one that asked for the divorce, I wanted to be the one to tell them. So he was out, and I sat them down and I said, I need to talk to you. It's about something really important. I said, I told Daddy that I don't love him anymore and that I want a divorce, and, family life will change a little bit, but we're going to do the very best to not make you unhappy and all of these things. And my daughter just went, okay, whatever you want. Like, she was 6. Was she 6? 2000? Yeah, she was 6. No, she was 5. It was just before her 6th birthday. So she was 5. And then my son was 6. And he did not take it as well. But I think he was scared. And when I told him,
Yeah.
what does it mean? What do I think might happen? And he said, okay. And I said, do you have any questions? No. And then when my ex came home and he said, what's going on? And I said, just so you know, I've told the kids that I've asked you for a divorce. He had this fit of rage and literally flew across the room. And I was like, oh my God, something bad's going to happen. And not that he was physically abusive, but I actually was afraid in that moment. And he grabbed both the kids, pulled them close to him, and I could see it in his face, the rage. And he was just like, how do you feel? And they both said, we're okay. And they looked at me, and I just nodded, like, it's okay. Like that reassuring, it's
Yeah.
okay, don't worry, because he had hold of them. And he said, no, you don't. And they looked at me, and he said, you don't feel okay, do you? And they said, no, we're fine. You don't feel okay, do you? You feel sad. You feel sad, don't you? And I thought, that that is
Wow.
why. That is why I'm leaving you. And that is a form of abuse, because you're telling them how to think and how to feel. And I knew in that moment, but I didn't feel like that up until that point. And at that point, I was like, yeah, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And this is what I've been experiencing. And this is why I feel the way that I feel, because you constantly tell me how to think, how to feel, what to do, what to not do. So there was that pivotal moment for me. And after that, yeah, and then I raised I think I did papers just after I told the kids. And then it was just a complete disaster after that. It just life was horrendous for the next 2 years or year and a half. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you did start to rebuild your life,
Yes.
and you did start to move on. But in the early days in particular, how did you rebuild trust in your own judgment?
I That's a great question. I just started to really think about the things that used to make me happy. And I used to think about, like, manifesting, how do I want my life to be? What do I want? Now I've got a clean slate. What do I want my life to look like? And not being afraid to think big, and not being afraid to say, this is actually what I want and what I deserve. And also think about what you don't want, right? Very clear on what you don't want. You can then decide and define what you do want. So I started doing, yeah, I started really sort of manifesting, what do I want, making like vision boards for the things that I wanted. And I really started to trust my gut instinct as well. I went part-time at that job that I had. I negotiated, I worked part-time, and I was going to go back to school. That didn't happen. It has happened now. years later, but it didn't happen immediately. But I just thought, now I can I can have anything that I want to have. So really, yeah, I really was getting clear on what does that look like. Now I've got nothing. Essentially, I'm living in my sister's garage. What does life look like for me and the kids? And I started going out and working for it and just work to design that life, trust my gut instinct. And I always, people say to me, about regrets, do you not have any regrets over things that happened? And I honestly don't really believe in regrets, because I feel like if we don't experience the things we experience, it doesn't shape who we are, and it doesn't help guide us in the next version of who we're supposed to be and how our life is supposed to be. So I'm a massive believer in that I made decisions for reasons, whether I knew instinctively what they were, whether it came from the gut, whether it was conscious, whatever, however you want to describe it. But those decisions were made by me in some form, and they've shaped now how my life has turned out.
Yeah. Amazing. Good for you. Because obviously rebuilding can go essentially one of two ways. I mean, you can either become hardened, and build that really tough exterior where it's, really difficult for people to kind of penetrate that and become emotionally connected with you, or you can go the other side and just become clearer. And obviously that's what you did, and you were able to see exactly what it is, not only what it was that you didn't want, but then look at what it is that you did want, which a lot of people find hard to do. How did you stop yourself becoming bitter? Because so many people, you know, I know a lot of people who have gone through divorces, gone through separations, gone through breakups. And sometimes it might be the man, a lot of the time it's the woman, they become bitter. So I know this because my own mother became bitter, and she's still she's still bitter. My parents divorced like 30 odd years ago. So it's mad. But so I know firsthand what bitterness can do. How did you manage to stop yourself from becoming bitter? Was it intentional?
Yeah, it was. And it's, listen, don't get me wrong. There are days that I talk bad about him all day, and not all day, but like something will happen and I'll be like, he's done this, or he's still controlling, or something will come up, right? But I really feel like in order to move forward, you're dragging all of this situation that happened with you into the future. You can't change what happened. It's happened. That happened to you, with you, for you, whatever is in that situation. But what you're doing is you're trying to rebuild your life while dragging an anchor of negativity and toxicity with you into the future. Like, how fast can you move forward when you've got this big bloody anchor that you're dragging behind you with all of this baggage and things that happened? And I just thought, you've had 9 years of me and my life. What, I'm going to let you have the power to continue with me on my future and drag me behind with all of this noise? No. So for me, I call it like, cut the anchor, right? Cut that. It's done. That happened. And it really should stay in the past, and it shouldn't define who you are now. It might shape who you are and how you show up and how guarded you are and how much you love, right? But it's like, how are you able to keep going forwards when you are dragging this? And someone else didn't really understand the analogy. And I said, it's like bricks, right? You've got a backpack of bricks that you're carrying, and every time they do something, another brick goes in. You're trying to walk forward. How slowly are you moving forward when every time they do something or say something or pay you off, you're putting another brick in your backpack? You're not moving forwards. You're moving at a snail pace because you're carrying the past around with you every day. And I could be bitter. I could. I slept in a garage for a year. I got, he kept all the baby stuff. That is the one thing I'm bitter about. I didn't get any baby books, any locks of hair, any baby clothes, any baby pictures, nothing. That is the one thing that I will always carry with me, because that's the one thing that hurt me the most, right? I don't have any of that. And I just think that'll be karma. That will be karma for you, that you took that away from me. But I don't care about the rest of it. I want to move on with my life, and I'm a massive believer in cut that anchor, get rid of that backpack, and you can move forward with speed.
My God, 100%. I couldn't explain it better myself. I mean, just letting that go, it is absolutely a massive weight, on you, in you, that you're trying to carry every single day. And you're right, you are trying to carry it through. If you don't let it go, you're carrying it through to your next relationship, your next sort of friendship, your next job, whatever it is, you're saddled with that. And those emotions. But not everybody is able or finds it not easy, but is able to kind of cut that and let that anchor go, if you like. So were there any boundaries that you put in place to help you kind of do that and stick to it?
We have a court order that says that we are only allowed to communicate via email. So I know that I don't get text messages or phone calls from him at like at any time, because he's not allowed to and I'm not allowed to him. So I think that is a huge boundary that most people don't have, because most people, particularly if you've got kids, you're still communicating over fraught phone calls or stress text message, like rage texting, right? So that is definitely a boundary to look at. And I think now, if you are trying to co-parent, there are apps available that you can communicate through an app, so that everything is logged, so it can go to the courts or the mediators if you need to, and really then you remove that that option for other like toxic communication. So
Yeah, definitely.
that was, even though that was him, he put that in place. I welcome it at this. There's times that I don't. So if something's going on with one of the kids and I can only send an email and he may or may not read it within 24, 48 hours, who knows, right? We had to go back to court because he could leave me unread for 3 days, and yet I need to do something with one of the kids or move something forward, or they need something. So we had to go back and redefine a time to acknowledge the email. So that was a nice waste of 3 grand just to get him to communicate better. But yeah, that was one boundary that I put in place, or that was in place. And I would look at, I would look beyond your relationship with your ex, whether it's a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. I would look at your relationships in terms of your friends and family as well, because sometimes, like we talked about earlier, right, the shame and the stigma had to redefine, what does my relationship with my parents look like, because it completely changed that dynamic. And it was a few years after, but we didn't talk for over 2 years, because I felt like every time I spoke to them, they made me cry. And I thought, you are the two people that are supposed to love me unconditionally. And every time I talk to you, you make me cry and you make me feel less than. And I had to put a boundary in, and I said, I just can't, I need a break from this relationship, because you just hurt me all the time and I can't do that. Rightly or wrongly. And we only get one set of parents, and I feel blessed. Some people have lost their parents already, and I know to still have parents is a blessing and all of those things. But at the same time, I have to protect myself, because now I don't have an ex-husband. Well, I have my ex-husband, but he's not my husband. You are the only people that are making me cry constantly, and that's not okay. So we then rebuilt that and redefined, how does that relationship look? And so that was one of the things that I would suggest, is really look at other people in your environment and whether you're feeling safe. Because if you're not feeling safe in your friendships, and by that I mean psychologically safe, right? And I know we talked about this as well, but if you're not psychologically safe with your friends, you feel like they're always judging you, you feel like it's a one-sided friendship, feel like they're sucking the life out of you, then that's where I would look at that as well. Because until you have people around you that inspire you, that support you, that make you feel safe to be yourself, like how are you ever going to again move forward and say what you really want when you've got these people around you that are unsupportive and making you feel less than. So that was one thing that I looked at. And yeah, I did lose some friends, and it's not from a selfish point of view. They didn't agree that I was divorced, but I have got my ride or die friends that have supported me through absolutely everything. And I knew at midnight I can call you and cry, and they're there picking up the phone. They listen through everything without judgment, and but they can also be that rational, like, what about this, Claire? Have you thought about this? Like, maybe think about that. And it comes from a place of love or respect. So they might have a different opinion, but it's the way that it's communicated is in that safe space. And so that's massive in rebuilding your life, is looking at those other relationships that you have.
I think when you have a good relationship like that with your friends or your family, just people that you can trust, and as a confidant, and someone who's not just going to tell you what you want to hear, someone who's actually going to call you out on your shit, when you need it, and give it to you as direct as you need it sometimes, because we all need it from time to time. But I just think you receive it a lot better, and you deal with it a lot better, and you actually respect where they're coming from, because they've only got your best interests at heart. And I think when they are willing to be honest with you, and sometimes call you out on it and give you like an unbiased, as much as they can, an unbiased kind of opinion and viewpoint, I definitely think that is received better by us as an individual, rather than someone who's, is always constantly negative towards you, perhaps like your parents may have been, or your friends who didn't support. It's hard to kind of really take on board what they say then. Yeah, I think relationships definitely need to rethink relationships.
And this is something that I've talked about as well, with other people, is that because we're mourning the loss of our relationship with our spouse, it's just some people then are scared to lose the friendships, right? They want to cling on to them because it's just like, oh God, I want to lose more people in my life. But I do feel like friendships sometimes they're almost seasonal. And I feel like sometimes people come into our life for a reason. It may be something that we need, they need, we need jointly together. And it's okay for that friendship to run its course. And I think as adults, because it's hard to build friendships as adults, right? As kids, we've got a million friends
Yeah,
because it's easy. We're in school and in clubs and
yeah,
stuff. As an adult,
absolutely.
it's really hard to maintain those friendships and find those friendships. So I think sometimes we fear losing them. So we accept sometimes less than we should expect in our friendships. But I do look at it like, okay, well, it's a seasonal thing. Maybe that friendship was there for that reason at that time.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually that you just touched upon what you're grieving for then in a divorce, because not all people, and it's not just about divorce, it's people who've been in relationships essentially for a longer period of time, however long that is. Because I think when we're older, when you're younger, you're in your teens, you could be with someone for 5 years and you say, oh no, we're only early in our relationship. We're still, oh no, we haven't been together for 2 minutes. Then you get in your 20s, and, if you've been together for a couple of years, it's like, oh yeah, it's still early. But then you get into your 30s or 40s, and you're in a relationship in your 30s or 40s, and 6 months all of a sudden feels like you've been with them for 3 or 4 years. So I think it depends what kind of stage you are in your life. But generally, especially when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe, when you break away from a relationship for whatever reason, they don't always break even. And, hearts don't always break even. And if I were to take away the word divorce and just asked you what the real thing women are grieving is when they leave a marriage, for example, what would you say? Is it the man, or is it the version of themselves, perhaps, that they hope that they might become?
I feel like it is a loss of identity when you leave a relationship, because we are defined by, I'm a wife and a mother and a business owner and a podcast host, right? We're defined by these labels. And when you take one away, it's like, okay, well, now who am I? Because we don't tell people, all of the other things that we are. I'm still, I'm kind and I'm generous and I'm loving and I'm thoughtful. I'm all of those things, but we forget that because we have such an identity attached to that romantic relationship. So I do feel like that's a huge loss that we face that perhaps we don't talk about, because we lose that label, if you like.
I think if any women, if there is any women out there who are listening right now thinking, I don't even know who I am anymore, and they've listened to this, and that's what they've thought. What is the first sign that you could say to them where they would know she's ready to change, even if she hasn't admitted it yet?
That's a great question. I feel like, because, for me, it was, I don't want to go home and I want to be out of the house more than I want to be home. I would look at the intimacy. How do you feel when you're intimate with your partner? Or do you shy away from any intimacy? That's a big tell. And perhaps the bigger question is, what would you regret more? Are you going to regret staying and living this life, or are you going to regret not knowing what your life can be and who you can be if you leave? So what are you going to regret and miss more in that? And then just think about what's possible. What do you want your life to be? And maybe it's just that you're lost in that relationship, or the relationship has lost its way. Maybe it's not that you're ready to leave, but you need to redefine what does that relationship look like so that you can have the things that you want. And maybe it is an intimacy, maybe it's an affection. You could look at, there's a book, I've got it here, the 5 love languages. So you could
Yes, I've
look
read
at,
that.
yeah, I love it. I love it. The 4
Yeah,
love languages. It
yeah,
could be, I say, as simple as that. It could be that you, in your relationship, you've just forgotten what is important to each other or how to connect. Um, but if you try all of these things and you look at all of these things and you still think, because people say it's the grass is greener, it's not always greener. It's, it's muddy and boggy and swampy, and, you're clawing your way out
yeah.
to the other side before it's green again. It's all that mess in between.
It might be greener, but it still needs mowing.
It still needs mowing. That's the thing. And it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, I would just look at, if you've tried everything and you still think, I look at you and I just don't love you, or I don't respect you, and I respect me more, and I need more, then I think that's where you know. And it's just putting steps in place and really be secure. Find those friendships, find that family, try and get, your ducks in a row, because you just never know. They always say it's a woman scorned. Let me tell you, it was a man scorned for me, and he put me through hell.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for that. I think, and this isn't to sort of help people to actually file for a divorce. I mean, this is just to give you an idea, the listeners, of if you feel like you've reached that point, and that's assuming you've tried everything. You've tried to reestablish boundaries. You've tried, realigning with what you may have lost over the years or the time that you've spent with each other. And if you just feel really, really battered down in your relationship and you don't even feel like a version of you anymore, that there is still hope coming out of it. And I think a lot of people feel sometimes too scared to make that change, make that jump. And you made that jump and you had children. Other people may be considering making the jump and they don't have children. It's just them, which is a bit easier, but they still feel scared. So what would you say to those people who are just scared of making that jump because they're scared of going into the unknown, particularly when they've been in that sort of relationship or whatever, marriage relationship for a number of years? They might have children, might have a house, etc. It's scary. What would you say?
It is scary. It's always scary, right? It's scary when we learn to ride our bike. It's scary when we start secondary school. It's scary when we go for job interviews. But what is possible on the other side of that? when we break through that fear. And I think, you know, it is that saying of face the fear and do it anyway. You know, you are playing small if you are afraid to leave. I always feel like you're, what is the right saying for it? So when you're playing small, I've lost my train of thought. I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I feel really passionately about this. I feel like there are fears that hold us back. I've got a huge fear of heights, right? I'm trying to overcome it. I keep working on it. I know it's irrational, but there's a fear of the unknown, but it should be a healthy dose of fear and anxiety, and because that's the nervous energy that's going to propel you forward. That's the nervous energy that's going to keep you going. And actually, when you do that, and look at what is possible, you get to go, who do I want to be and what do I want to achieve? And get your vision board, start manifesting stuff, start writing. You can even write down in journals your fears, right? Doomsday, catastrophize it. What is the worst thing that's going to happen if you leave? But what is the best thing that's going to happen?
Yes. 100%. And not many people look at that today. They don't ask that question. They just look at what's the worst thing that can happen, you know, and try and prepare for that. But actually, I think you need to prepare yourself for what's the best that can happen. What could your life be like, you know, if you made that jump? It's about feeling the fear and taking the risk anyway.
Yes. Yeah. And channeling that and being brave, trusting yourself and having courage. And if you can't fight for your life, then how can you expect other people to fight for your life either? You know, to support you in your decisions. If you can't come to those decisions with clarity and conviction and go, this is it, this is what I'm doing, that's when you're going to get people supporting you.
Yeah. Amazing. Claire, what I appreciate the most about your story is it's not just resilience, it's literally self-reclamation. You didn't just leave a marriage, you left a version of you that had just gone so quiet, gone so silent, and was just a shell. And to anyone listening, you know, losing yourself is not a weakness. It's a warning. And the moment you start asking, is this still me? You're already beginning to come back. So Claire, amazing story, amazing you being on the show. I really thank you for your openness, your honesty, and just for sharing, you know, some of your darkest times there, because they're not easy. And I'm sure some of my listeners will really, really appreciate the courage that you took and the resilience that you have, and might give them a little boost that they can do it too. So thank you so much for being on the show.
No,
for sharing.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating a safe space to allow me to be open and honest and share my story. And hopefully it resonates with some of your listeners as well. So I appreciate you, Rachel. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you. And to everyone listening, if this episode made you uncomfortable in the right way, please share it, because the conversations that challenge us are usually the ones that change us. Follow Unspoken Emotions for more conversations that don't stay on the surface. Remember, as always, there's strength in every step and courage in every story. Until next time, big love.